Hello everyone, just a quick recap of the World Chess Championship match, Game 2, between Grandmaster Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana, who had the black pieces today. The first game was a draw, and the second game um, was highly anticipated, of course, as it was Magnus Carlsen's first chance with the white pieces. So he started out with d4, knight f6, knight f3. So we can see that there's still some more to find out as far as what Caruana would have played against the move c4, offering the Queen's Gambit. What kind of Indian defense, if any, would he have chosen? But knight f3 by Carlsen, d5, c4, e6, and knight c3. So we have a Queen's Gambit declined. Um, chosen by Caruana. Bishop f4. This is the Steinitz variation, which was out of favor for a long time after Pillsbury's move. Bishop g5 back in, I believe, Hastings 1895 became more the rage, putting more pressure on the black pawn center by always threatening to exchange on f6. But, well, much water has flowed under the bridge since those days, and Bishop f4 is also viable, although not, putting as much pressure on the black position. And Caruana went on and equalized with great ease. And I'm not going to say too much about this game. There's tons of commentary by grandmasters, like all all over YouTube concerning this game. What I wanted to talk about so far is just the general match strategy and where I see it going based on these two games. So I will be playing the moves with some really light commentary, but nothing major. So we see a lot of theory, and basically we see Caruana sticking to the classical approach, equalizing with no problem. And some people thought during the game that Magnus was in some kind of difficulties, but there was never any difficulties faced from either side. Um, After the next couple of moves, some exchanges were made. I'm gonna pause right here. And we can see at this point that statically, of course, black is better. And one of my coaches used to tell me, it's like a real simple and general rule of thumb. Uh, you have usually you have static features in chess and you have dynamic features in chess. Your static features are usually, again, a rule of thumb, your long-term advantages or disadvantages in the position. Your dynamic features are more fleeting. Usually a dynamic advantage has to be utilized right away in a few moves, or your opponent will be able to recover from that said disadvantage. Usually a static advantage or disadvantage will last very long. So for example, that pawn on a4 is isolated. The pawn on c3 is isolated, and those are static disadvantages for white. In other words, they're going to be around for a long time going on into the end game. There isn't any way that you can see in the next few moves white getting, being able to get rid of those weaknesses. Same can be said about the pawn on f4. So that's just a quick example of static weaknesses, and they tend to be more long-term. Static weakness or an advantage, what have you. Therefore, if you're worse statically, usually your strategy is, in order to compensate for that disadvantage, you have to be better dynamically or have more activity, usually in the forms of threats, piece location, open ranks, files, diagonals, etc. And what you see is that you see that here right on the board. If you notice, yes, Caruana has the better position statically. It's perfect pawn structure. He has the bishop pair, right? There's nothing that you can really put down about his position in a static sense. However, dynamically, it's Magnus Carlsen who holds the cards here. His knight is on e5, supported by the f pawn. Bishop is optimally placed on f3, right? It makes it difficult for black to complete his development, as his bishop is stuck on c8 for now because he can't afford to just give up that b7 pawn. And since the bishop is stuck on c8, it makes it hard to develop the rook on a8. We also see the rook on d1 for Magnus. And also, so for example, if that bishop on d6 move, then simple idea could be, say, rook takes d8, queen takes d8, and then move the other rook on the f file to d1, hitting the queen. Also, look at where white Magnus's queen is on c2 on a beautiful diagonal. So you can see, to compensate for his static disadvantages, he has several advantages stored up in the dynamic department. So don't think that black is just better here. It's not that simple. Okay, this is what you would call a nice equilibrium here. Black has his trumps, white has his trumps here. And so what I want to say about the match going forward is, it seems that and I felt this way coming into the match because of Caruana's style of play. He's real solid player. Plays by the book, so to speak. Very classically minded player. Comes from that grain of Kramnik, Karpov, Capablanca. He's from that line of thought, I would say. And Carlsen's very interesting player. He's seems eclectic, but he definitely has a little bit of Kasparov in him, as far as taking on these type of positions. And if you remember from game one, he played the Sicilian. He had no problem going into that willing to go into that accelerated dragon type setup, accepting doubled pawns, having his castling opposite wing, basically playing for dynamics. So he showed that he's willing to accept inferior static positions in order to have dynamic attacking positions. So this is going to be an exciting chess championship, and Caruana seems to be playing a strategy that Karyakin adopted in his match against Carlsen, which ultimately didn't work out, but Karyakin came very close to winning the title. And it was that, basically, to wait out Carlsen, to let Carlsen basically overpress at some point, and say, for instance, drop a pawn, or as he did in this game. Not that he dropped the pawn, but he he lost the pawn, but of course he calculated and knew that the game would end up drawn. But his idea, his strategy seemed to let Carlsen press, because Carlsen is definitely a worker. As you see, the first game was like 100 and something moves, and it let Carlsen press, and hopefully oversteps his bounds and drops the point somehow. I believe that is Caruana's only chance. Although it didn't work with Karyakin, I believe that's Caruana's only chance, is to adopt the same type of strategy, is to play very solid, don't make any obvious mistakes, hope that Carlsen overpresses his advantage at some point, or is over optimistic, and then drops a game, and then hold on to that 1-0 lead with all of his might, and not enter into any rapid blitz or Armageddon formats where Carlsen is, number one in the world in all of these things. I don't believe Caruana has any chance. Of course, he has a chance. Let's take that back. But I believe his chances are very slim in the blitz format. He's not known as a prolific blitz player, and I think that in the rapid setting or blitz setting, uh, Carlsen advantage would just increase, exponentially. That's just not the type of player Caruana is. Okay, his play is based on preparation, uh, deep moves, very logical thought, and it doesn't come through the same way in the blitz and rapid settings against a player like Carlsen. So that's my take on how I feel Caruana's strategy is going to be going forward based on these two games. Is that you're going to just see solid openings from White and Black from Caruana. For Carlsen's side, I believe that you're going to continue to see dynamic openings that he wants to um, basically create chances. He's not going to go into, just these long theoretical lines and go into these end games and everything symmetrical and trade off and draw, 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 draw. Now, Carlsen could do that and just beat Caruana in the Rapids. So that shows a little bit about uh, something about Carlsen's character, that he is playing in his dynamic style. Okay, not many players with the white pieces would like a position like this. But I believe that he thinks that he's stronger than Caruana overall, and that he can bring the fight to Caruana and beat him in this kind of game. I'm going to go on a few more moves so you can see. Again, you see the piece activity of White being just enough to compensate for the static superiority of Black. Now you have the pawn on e5, granting White a space advantage. And as we go on, again, I'm not even going to comment because there's tons of commentary, but the game is pretty equal. Again, the general rule of thumb here is one side has the dynamic advantages, the other side static advantages. Caruana's again following the general rules, trading down, hoping that he can make something out of these positional advantages as the game goes forward. Now his only problem right now, Caruana, is the defense of the B pawn and thus the 7th rank. If he's able to take care of that, then he will be free to scoop up all of these weak pawns. And this is like a well-known strategy, basically weathering the storm and then pick up the pieces at the end. And this is what Caruana tries to do. So he's going after the D6 pawn. Of course, there's issue here because the rook on B8 is not protected. B6 is played. C5, again exploiting the same issue. Of course, C5... Excuse me, B takes C5 would be a mistake because of the rook being unprotected, and also the move B5 would be a mistake because the C and D pawns would be able to advance after the move C6, and then Black would just be lost. So continuing on, this is why you don't see B5 played here by Black. Of course, it would be a big blunder. Instead, King D7, and this stops the pawn from advancing to C6. So Magnus trades. A7. Again, just keep the theme in mind. Activity. Just enough activity to curtail the static advantage that Black has. Rook takes B6. The pawn drops on A7, and now you can see that the pawn on D6 is going to drop also. Of course, Carlsen knows this already. There goes the pawn, and now you have this 4-3 nominal advantage for Caruana. So this is more of a psychological advantage anyway. It's a theoretical draw, the pair on the board. And then the players just repeat here. And again, the theme of the game is that white's activity is just enough to deal with the the static advantages that black has. It made me laugh a little because I know I said the word static probably about 30 times, but if that's what it takes to to get the concept across, then so be it. And at move 49, the players agreed to a draw. So we saw in the first two games that the black side was the side that ultimately wound up pressing at the end. So I hope you enjoyed that brief summary. I do think again Carlsen is going to win. But the only scenario I can really see Caruana winning is winning a classical game, and then somehow just trying to draw the rest, which I think his style is definitely suited for that. But um, it's hard for me to see him winning a game, but I can see him winning in the same style Karyakin did in the Carlsen World Championship, is when Carlsen overpressed and then wind up losing. And then, as we know, Carlsen wind up winning, I believe it was game 10. And then, of course, they went into the Rapids and Blitz, etc., and the rest was history. So if Caruana is the win, I see him winning in the same way. One demerit that I want to take from Caruana is that in game one he played this Rosalimo variation against the Sicilian, and so therefore I feel like he almost wasted a white in that he still doesn't know what Carlsen has prepared against the open, more mainline Sicilian. So it's like he has to try again because he actually was almost lost in that game. So he definitely can't try out the same line. So it's kind of like when he has white again, it's almost going to be like, even though it's game three, it'll be him having white for the first time again. So it'll be interesting to see what he has prepared against Magnus Carlsen's Sicilian defense. And even with that move, playing C5, Carlsen has showed that he's decided to play dynamic against Caruana. So again, I see after the rest day tomorrow an exciting game on Monday, and be interested to see what Caruana does to improve his lot with the white pieces. So with that said, I'll see you guys, on the next game.